I asked a question on Facebook not too long ago in a post, and I asked, do you remember life before TV? Now, I knew that that would not be such a popular post because you have to be a certain age to remember life before TV. But I know that I have quite a few friends who are in my age category who might remember life without TV, and some of you did respond, and I thank you for responding. But I want to go back to life before TV because so many of you have no idea of what it was like before TV, but it wasn't a big deal because you can't miss what you don't have. We didn't have it and we didn't miss it. Now, life before TV was a very interesting life because I think we read more books. We talked more. We were more communicative, I think, because when we went somewhere to visit friends or to visit family, we had to sit and talk. There was no such thing as, well, let's see what's on the TV. Let's watch a show. Let's watch Netflix and chill. There was none of that back in those days. But we still enjoyed ourselves. I remember my mother and aunts had radios. Radios were very popular in those days. And there were certain stories and shows that would come on the radio just as they do on the TV. A lot of those radio personalities changed over into TV when the TV came. So what we would do with the radio was to just sit and listen to the radio shows that came on. And those radio shows also had commercials. Oh my goodness. But even more than that, some of you remember the soap operas. Oh, there were soap operas on the radio. And some of you now, some of us still watch the soap operas on TV, but I want you to know that the soap operas have been around way before the TV. Way before the TV. And of course, radio was around for a long time. So people were listening to those soap operas wherever you went. They had the soap operas on the radio. Stella Dallas, Young Widow Brown. Oh my goodness, all of those soap operas. And the ladies, of course, I was a young child, a young child. But I remember the music that would play before those soap operas would come on. And people would say, get quiet now, get quiet. My story is coming on. My story is coming on. Just as we do today for the soap operas that come on today. Of course, back then, I don't think they called them soap operas. Maybe they did. But we just called them shows that came on the radio. And we enjoyed them so much. My mother worked, as of course you know, because I've told you this many, many times. And she had a lady that would take care of us. We lived at that time on Quincy Place, Northeast in Washington, D.C. And this lady lived on Florida Avenue. Her name was Miss Williams. Mama would take us over to Miss Williams' house. Now, Miss Williams was a very interesting old woman. Now, we said she's old. Now, when I think about myself these days, I don't think she was as old as I am now. But when you are 5 and 6 years old, she was an old woman to us. And all the 5 of us would go into her house. And she would always say, now, don't you all mess up my house. Go over there and sit on the steps. As soon as we walked in her door, we would have to sit on the steps. Now, if you would imagine walking in the door, then there was a little vestibule there. Then you'd walk through the vestibule into the house where there was a little hall. And at the end of the hall, there were steps going up to the second floor. She made us sit on the steps. All 5 of us sit on the steps. Can you imagine 5 little children sitting on the steps? I pause. But you know what? We had more fun sitting on those steps than you can imagine. We played games on those steps. We talked on those steps. We just imagined things on those steps. I told my sisters and brothers stories on those steps. We knew that whenever we went to Miss Williams' house, we were going to sit on the steps. And then sometimes she would come by and go up the steps, and we would watch her go up the steps, up, up, up. And then we would stand up and move around. Because you see, when she told us to sit on the steps, we weren't supposed to move. Now, she didn't mean we couldn't move our arms and legs and all of that, but we could not get up. We could not stand up and walk around. Now, if we had to go to the bathroom, we would say, Miss Williams, can we go to the bathroom? And she would let us go to the bathroom. Sometimes she would let us go 2 at a time, 1 at a time, whatever the situation would be. Sometimes Miss Williams would let us go out into her backyard because she would cook us breakfast. And once we would go out into the backyard and play around, she would let us come in, and she would have a nice breakfast for us. Grits, eggs, ham, and ham gravy. I'd never heard of anything like ham gravy before we started going to Miss Williams' house. Oh, it was delicious, and we loved it. Now, Mrs. Williams had a profession. She washed and ironed people's clothes. People would bring their dirty clothes to her house, I guess on a weekly basis, a daily basis, several times a week. And she would have baskets of clothes that she washed for people. And we would just kind of watch her washing clothes. She had a washing machine. She was one of the few people at that time who had a washing machine. You know, washing machines weren't, everybody didn't have washing machines when I was a little girl. A lot of people washed in wash tubs, and they had washboards and soap, and they washed just on that washboard. But since it was her profession, she had a washing machine. Oh my goodness. She used that, I think she used Oxidol. There was a soap powder called Oxidol. She would use that soap powder, and she would wash those people's shirts and sheets and pillowcases, and she would iron those shirts. She would wash them, dry them outside on the line. She didn't have a dryer. Later on, she got a dryer, but she would hang those clothes outside. Then she would bring those clothes in. She would iron those clothes to a T. Oh, my goodness. And she had a machine that was not an iron, but it was something that you would put the shirt on, and then you would use your foot to pull this thing down on the shirt, and the shirt would be pressed. And she could do pants and all kinds of things, this old lady. Oh my goodness, she had a good business, a really, really good business, a lucrative business. And we just watched her. Little did I know at the time, because I was a child, that she was teaching us something that we would never have known anything about. But I bring up Miss Williams to you today because she listened to the radio from morning to night. And that's, I guess, where we got a good taste for the radio and all of the things that came on the radio, because she listened to her soap operas. She listened to her other shows. They had Dragnet. They had The Shadow, all kinds of scary programs. And the way those technicians would do Hopalong Cassidy and all of those cowboy things, they would use their hands and bodies and all kinds of technology, not like we have today, but they could make the sounds that would be necessary for all of the skits and the shows and all of that. Oh my goodness. Before television, life was not the same, but life was not bad at all before television. We learned from each other. We went more places. We shared more with each other. We went outside to play. We ran up and down the street. We had friends all in the community. Life before TV was fabulous.